power of coalition. One of the most powerful moments from last week was seeing mothers come together in Portland to support Black Lives Matter. Women of all ages came together to create a wall of moms as a symbolic message of love, empathy, and understanding. Then the veterans joined in solidarity to become the shield to protect the protesters and support Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, and equal rights for all. Dad Is a Noun had the opportunity to talk to retired U.S. Navy Commander Zoe Dunning, a longtime veterans, women's, and LGBTQ activist, about the events in Portland and their impact on building this coalition of inclusion and diversity
All right.
in the
Thank you,
fight against
everybody. This
structural
is Ishmael from
discrimination.
Dad Is Not A Noun. Dad Is Not A Noun is a social media platform dedicated in changing the narrative when it comes to men of color and fatherhood. And I think one of the key things of Dad Is A Noun is changing the narrative. And so what kind of hurt my heart was recently is the scenes that I seen in Portland. We had the walls of moms and these different groups coming together for Black Lives Movement. And you see the moms getting tear gas and the, whatever you want to call them, federal officers or whatever you want to call it, are beating these protesters. And so I wanted to take the time to talk about this and put it out there, you know, because it's important, because at the end of the day, we are a big community. And I'm happy and I'm lucky and I'm honored to have Zoe Dunning. She is a retired U.S. Navy commander, change strategist, activist for women, veterans, and the LGBTQ community, and also a stand-up comic. So can you tell us a little joke? You got a little joke in your joke bag?
No, I should probably take that out of my profile because it sets these really unrealistic expectations that I'm going to be hilarious. So,
but again, I thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. The one thing I think is the biggest thing when it comes to community and bringing people together against the unjust is when it comes to Black Lives movement. Also, you know, the gay, lesbian, trans community. The one thing we have in common is institutional discrimination and what you face being in the Navy. So can you kind of talk about your story a little bit of what you had to overcome a little bit?
sure, thank you for that. So I joined the Navy when I was like 18 and I wasn't really sure of my own sexual orientation, and it eventually became clear to me. And then I realized that if anyone were to find out, I would be kicked out. And so there was a lot of sort of bullying, and I think where there's a lot of similarities is like people would make homophobic jokes, people similar to when people make racist jokes, and it's about the people that don't stop them, right? Like it's part of the culture. It's sort of, people can get away with it, and the more you get away with it, the more it happens, and it creates this system and this culture where outsiders, if you're a little different, have bias against them, are discriminated against. And what I think it did for me in the military is it gave me a real sensitivity to how do we become an inclusive community? How do we change the culture of an organization? So I spent a lot of years working to repeal the don't ask, don't tell policy. I came out publicly. I went through a 2.5-year discharge process. I actually won my case and was the only openly gay member of the military for many years, and led an organization called Service Members Legal Defense Network that provided legal assistance to those who were impacted, and also worked to change it on Capitol Hill. So where I draw a lot of the parallels is, I mean, obviously I have no experience, I have no idea what it's like. I can't possibly say I know what it's like to be Black or Black in society or in the military. The one thread that I can find the commonality is that sense of being the outsider, experiencing discrimination, experiencing the bias. And so that's why with this Black Lives Matter movement, living here in Oakland, in the center of it, where the Black Panthers were founded, where a lot of social activism has come, it's very visceral to me and very familiar. And it's something that I wanted to get involved in.
And I think that's important to put that thread together because again, it goes back to whoever gets discriminated, another group is going to get discriminated too. And so it's important to build that coalition, that community, that coalition group. And so can you talk about the importance of building a community when it comes to facing institutionalized discrimination, the importance of building a community?
Well, absolutely. We can't, if we are just in our silos, if the gays only work on gay rights, if Blacks only work on, racial discrimination, if the disabled community only works, I mean, we're not very powerful because we're smaller in numbers, right? And it's that intersectionality too, right?
Right.
The gay and lesbian community is not just white gay and lesbian community. We have, we have people of color, we have, indigenous people, we have a wide variety of folks. So it doesn't take into account intersectionality. So for instance, if you're an African-American lesbian, you are facing issues because you're a woman, you're facing issues because you're Black, you're facing issues because you're gay, but there's also a very unique experience of having all three of those, right? Like it's not just adding the sum of those experiences. It's like being a Black woman, being a Black lesbian is a completely unique and separate experience. So we can't segment it out because we as humans can't segment it out. And so we have to come together and bring all of the power of all of our communities to address whatever is happening, because it often comes from the same place, right? Racism, homophobia, sexism, misogyny, xenophobia, like it all comes from a fear of others, a thinking that it's a zero-sum game. And if I give rights to one piece of the pie, that takes away from my, from my pie. And so it's addressing the same systemic challenges and issues within society and culture. And so that's why we have to band together to address the root cause of all of it, because it's all coming from the same place.
And then you've seen the videos of what happened in Portland. And I know that kind of, when you've seen the video of, mothers being tear gas, and that kind of puts stuff in perspective, because, I have a mother, you have a mother, what if your mom was there? How would you take it? So how did you feel personally when you saw those images?
Well, first of all, I was incredibly proud of the mothers who stepped forward. I thought it was a powerful image. I thought it would demonstrate the ridiculousness of some of these federal, law enforcement forces that have been sent to these cities supposedly to quell the protests, but in fact, they're inciting it. They're creating the conflict. They're causing a lot of that upheaval. And for the moms to physically put their bodies in front of the protesters, many of them white mothers, many of them saying we have children, we do not want you, hurting them. And the visual of seeing these federal forces, I don't care if you're a mother, I'm going to, hit you with pepper spray. I'm going to, send tear gas your way. We don't care. It's sort of like the lowest common, it's like the lowest common, if you're going to actually do this to mothers, right. That speaks for all of society. Anyone could be the victim of this. And so for me personally, watching that was incredibly powerful. And I had sort of come up with this idea of we should have a wall of veterans too. And then I found out that in Portland, Chris, the Navy veteran, who he and I both attended the Naval Academy, seeing that visual of him being beaten by batons and having two bones in his hand broken for standing up and asking basically the law enforcement about their oath of office, I found out about that movement. And so I immediately got in touch with him, and it turned out there was a protest in Oakland last night. And I was like, let me organize a wall of veterans. And what we've been doing, and these chapters have been forming literally over the last 48 hours in almost every city in the US, is we're forming a group of veterans that are going to stand as sort of protection between the mothers and the law enforcement. And we think that's also another powerful message, is if they're willing to turn on veterans, right. People who have, sacrificed for our country, have dedicated our lives to the country, because it's really about an oath of office. And I think there's a lot of stereotyping around the all military are conservative, all military are Republicans, all military are very, pro law enforcement and all of that. We're really pro Constitution. I like to describe a veteran as someone who walked into a recruiter's office and signed a blank check to the American people payable for up to and including their own life. Right. And so this is a very special group of folks who are committed to the Constitution, are committed to America, are committed to society. And so when we stand up and say, this is not the America that we fought to defend, this is not, this is creating division, it's creating civil unrest. Like, we're here in some ways to protect the Constitution. We are here to take the guidance of the Wall of Moms, we're following the lead of the protesters, we're following the lead of the Wall of Moms. We're here to, as an accessory, not just as an ally, but we're here to, actually advocate, help you be more than just an ally, but actually be there and provide, protection and assistance for you all.
And I think, and the one thing that's powerful about that is the Wall of Veterans is a shield to let people raise their voice. Because usually when people raise their voice for injustice, they usually get a backlash, or like the scenes you've seen, like being beaten or things in that horrible nature. So to be a shield, to say, you know what, I am here for you. You're not alone. And so I find that powerful and impactful, and it shows that you're not alone. We're in this together, and it goes back to your days in the Navy of when a man or woman is down, you pick them up and you're there for them. So can you kind of like talk about that basic, like you said, you're about the Constitution, but also looking at each individual as a human being.
Absolutely. On the battlefield, we say no one left behind. You are a team. You are there for one another. And so we don't just like, oh, great, don't ask, don't tell was repealed. I got mine, I'm moving on. We're there for each other. The old expression, like none of us are free until we're all free, right? And so, we need to step up there and be there for one another and be allies for one another, because we're all in it together. One of the things that I found very interesting about the group that assembled in Oakland, we had like 12 hours. Like, I woke up that morning, heard that there was this Wall of Vets organization, volunteered to lead in Oakland, cobbled together, got the word out, and a dozen of us showed up. And when I first saw the group, I was like, this is not what you would think of when you think of Wall of Veterans. Like, you probably have this image of like what we think of as veterans, which is typically in society, white, cisgendered, straight, strapping, young males. And it was old lesbians. It was, young Hispanic men. It was, the whole gamut of folks. And people of color, like indigenous, it was a woman there who was indigenous. And what it reminded me is like, those of us who served in the military and maybe had an outside identity, like it was, being gay or being person of color or whatever it might be, like, we know what it's like to be an outsider. Like we face that, like we served our country, but yet we understand what it means to, experience racism, experience discrimination, whatever it might be. So when the Black Lives Matter movement comes up, we want to participate. Like, we want to contribute. How can we contribute in an effective way? And then we saw the Wall of Moms and we're like, maybe we can be, a protection for them. So you look at this, Wall of Veterans, and it's just like, it was literally this rainbow of diverse people and who have experienced tough things before, right? Like some of them have been in combat, some of them have, like, and we have the discipline, right? So from a peaceful protest, we have the discipline when people are confronted. It's like, we're not going to react. We're not going to respond or engage in a way that's going to contribute to the violence. Like, we're there and have the discipline to sort of protect and try to keep it as peaceful as possible.
And I love, and like I said, I truly appreciate, I love what the Wall of Veterans it represents, because I'm an avid learner of history, and I feel like, if we don't learn from the past, we doomed to repeat it. And so, especially when it comes to Black Lives Matter, like LeBron eloquently said, Black lives is not a movement; it's a lifestyle. It's not something that it's not going to go away. My skin color is not going to go away. It's going to be with me forever. And to feel like, to have that comfort that you have someone in arms with you that may not understand, your situation or what you deal with, but willing to understand and be with you. And I think that's the most important thing. And what I love about it too is that I wish this was there for the Black veterans in World War II. You know, if this was there, I think it would be a lot different. And so again, me being a person of history, that it just shows how we've come so far. Even though we have a lot to go, but to see that veterans saw what's going on and say, you know what, this is enough. It's enough. I'm tired of this. Let's get together. Let's join. Let's build a coalition and let's work. And I love it. And I thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely, we're committed to being there, and yeah, we want to be step up. We want to be visible, and again, we're following the direction of the organizers, the protesters, the Wall of Moms. But as veterans, we're committed to defending our Constitution, and part of that is the First Amendment rights of folks to assemble, as well as free speech. And we're there for you.
So what advice do you have for your friendly veterans that's kind of iffy, like I don't know if I want to be a part of it because I don't want to be considered Black Lives Matter, because there's a part of the country that thinks Black Lives Matter, Black Lives movement is a terrorist group. That's a part of the country that thinks that way. So what do you tell to your federal friendly veterans that, hey, join us, we're in this together? So what do you have to say to them?
Well, my experience having gone to the protests, they're 99% peaceful, and frankly, when things do get violent, or like the shenanigans begin, as I like to say, we don't participate in that. We sort of are not part of that. But the Black Lives Movement, it's about integrity. It's about bringing to light and visible the systemic aspects of it. And I think even for me personally, like you hear these individual cases of racism or these situations, but all the videotaping of the police brutality and the shootings and everything else, I think what for me personally was hard to watch was not just the actual act itself, but their colleagues that let it happen. And there is that culture of like, you don't turn in your brother, you don't turn in your and that's in the military too. Like, you don't build your classmate, you don't turn on them. You're a band of brothers, you stick together. And we have to break that. It's systemic. Like, we have to break that. We have to make it a safe space for fellow officers to step up and say, no, this is wrong, or to provide first aid to someone who's been harmed by their fellow officer. And so I just say to fellow veterans, like, it is, we signed an oath for service to country. This is the most important issue that's going on in our country right now, obviously outside of COVID as well. But, that's what I say to when people say all lives matter. I'm saying the lifeguard at the swimming pool isn't trying to save everyone in the pool. They're trying to save the person who's drowning. Right now in society, it's Black lives that are drowning and need the attention and need the safety. And so, if we want to be of service to this country right now, this is one of the most important things you can get involved in.
Awesome. And then one more quick question. How do you feel, being a woman, with the story of Vanessa Gillian, the Spanish woman that, went to her superiors, they didn't do anything, and then, she was murdered, and a lot of people feel like it's a cover-up. You being a woman, you dealt with discrimination. What are your feelings about that? What are your views on that? If you feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm, that I know all of the details of the case. I've seen the headlines, I've read some of it. I think that there is still issues in the military about chain of command taking reports of sexual assault, sexual harassment seriously. I don't know if it was linked to her death or not, but it does feel like the command took an awfully long time, was fairly passive once they knew that she was missing. So I hope the investigation uncovers what truly happened. And I think it also brings to highlight that, we have a broken system when it comes to both having sexual harassment, sexual assault in the military, and also how we handle it when it's reported.
Very true. And again, thank you. And then also, you want to let people know where they can find you, who wants to join, or website or anything they can get a link to reach you guys and be a part of Walls of Veterans?
Absolutely. On Twitter, it's, I think Wall of Vets is the Twitter handle. I lead the Oakland chapter. We are Wall of Vets OAK for Oakland. You can just Google it and find it, and you'll see all the information about what we're doing. Like I said, in the last 24 hours, I think we've gotten volunteers from all over the country to lead chapters in their own cities. So we're building the plane while we fly it. We're figuring it out, but we have gotten an overwhelming response of veterans who want to help, and that's so encouraging.
That is awesome. Again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Keep the good fight. Anytime you're welcome to come back to give us an update, like what's going on across the country, especially Portland, because I still have my eye on what's going on in Portland. And
Yeah.
the one thing that was beautiful was it 2 nights ago where everyone came together and had their flashlight up and joined in the community. And that kind of gave you a microcosm of what America could be and should be, and what we should strive to be.
Absolutely, and thank you for the work that you're doing and trying to get the word out through this podcast. It's encouraging, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.